Hi, my name's Trey Brimmer. I'm with Mitel. Today we're going to go over the ACD agent phones. Show you what buttons we put together for you on those. A couple things to remember first is you don't need a 1 for long distance calls. You do need the area code and phone number for even local calls, but also long distance and 800. You can skip the 1. The mailbox password by default is 1111, but once you go in the first time, it'll have you change that passcode to something else. The passcode pin to log in as an agent is also 1111 and matches your mailbox number. So when you initially change your mailbox number, you'll also change your pin to log into your phone. So those two numbers will match. Try to make it easy on you. If you call 911, don't hang up. Tell the 911 operator that you made a mistake, or they will dispatch and sometimes even charge for coming out to site for accidental dialing. For some reason, every time we put in a new system, there's always a problem with people dialing 911. Not sure why. Maybe it's because you're not putting the 1 in front of the digit anymore or something when you're dialing long distance. So be very cautious about doing it. But if you accidentally make the mistake, even if you think you hung up quick enough, you haven't. So make sure you stick on the line and let them know that it was a mistake. To make an outgoing call, it's probably similar to how it is now. You just press 9 and dial the area code and phone number. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to start over on the right-hand side of your screen up where it says message waiting lamp, and we're going to work our way down. And then we're going to go down the center of the phone with some buttons we designed. Now, the one I'm going to be showing you today is going to be the 5330E phone. Now, I know you guys have a variety of phones out there, 5330s and 5324s and all sorts of stuff. But all the buttons are going to be similar. The only difference is what displays may look a little bit different, and the buttons may be maybe 1 or 2 buttons off because some of the phones that you have a lot more buttons, so those may spread out a little more. But otherwise, it's going to be the same basic experience. But the buttons will function the same, and the buttons we designed for you will be the same across the board for all you ACD hot desk users. So let's kind of talk about the first step, what you're going to need to do as an ACD agent. You're going to have to hot desk into the phone as an agent, and all that really means is there's a button that says hot desk. You're going to press that, and then you're going to log in. So let's do that process together so you can kind of see what it looks like. First, here's what the phone sort of looks like when you're dealing with the 20s, 30s, or 40s. They'll say locked up in the display. If you're dealing with a 24 or one of the other sets, it should also say locked in the display, but it's not going to show you this little area I circled at the bottom where it has the pound and the extension number. That's also to help you understand that it's not you're not logged in yet. It'll also indicate hot desk here when you're not logged in. It will not indicate that if you're already logged in. Only indicates it when you're not. So if it's allowing you to hot desk in, you know that you are not logged in. So this is sort of what the display looks at. The first thing you want to do is press the key corresponding to the hot desk label. Once you hot desk in, once you press the key, it's going to say log in. You'll press log in, and then you're going to enter your extension number, which is usually it matches the extension of the hot desk host phone, but you'll know what your extension is. You'll punch that number into the phone, and then once you put the number in, you're going to say OK. It'll show up OK. You'll notice there's a little arrow above the OK. That's if you make a mistake, you punch in your extension wrong, you can back up and get rid of those digits and start punching new ones. So you're going to use the keypad to put in your extension number. Once you press OK, it's then going to say enter your PIN. Remember, your PIN initially is 1111, but it's going to change to whatever you change your passcode for your voicemail. So be very careful and decide what you want to punch in daily, because the best process on this is that you log in the morning, you log out at night, and in between you're going to make yourself busy. So every morning you're going to need to log in and put in your PIN. Okay, so once you put in your 1111 or whatever you've changed it to, you'll say OK, and then you're in. So to get into your voicemail, well, pretty much to get into your voicemail, there are ways around it, but you'll still need to log in first. So always when you log in the first time, it's always going to be the 1111. Say OK, and then there's me putting the 111 in, and then I'm pressing OK, and then it's going to say application loading in your display. So that takes about 2 seconds, and then it's loaded up. So once you're loaded, this isn't your display here below, but that shows you what the application says. So let's kind of look at the phone, and we'll talk about some features that are specific to the ACD user. But we'll also show you the generic features. You may or may not know. If you already have one of these phones, you probably played with it. So this may be just a refresher for you. But I'm going to go through fairly briskly each of the buttons so you know what everything is. And then we'll talk about the buttons we've designed for you. So let's start at the top. You have your message indication lamp. That'll blink when you have new voicemail messages. Your volume, which is up and down arrows, which will allow you to change the volume of both the handset, the speaker, the headset, or your ringer. So all you have to really do is pick up the handset, you're adjusting that. Turn on your speaker, you're adjusting that. Turn on your headset, you're adjusting that. Or when the phone is ringing, leave the handset in the cradle, and before you pick it up, adjust the volume up and down. It'll change the ringer volume. The next button over is your speaker key, but you don't need to press the speaker key to be on speakerphone. All you have to really do is leave the handset in the cradle and begin dialing, and you'll be on speakerphone automatically. Of course, if you're wearing a headset, depending on the style of headset you're wearing, you know, the speaker may or may not work. So it just depends on the variety of headsets that are out there. It's hard to say. But generally, you won't have a speakerphone if you are wearing a headset. The next key is the mute key, and you can kind of tell it's a clear button to kind of indicate to you that it's lit. So when you press the key, it'll light up like a little light to let you know you're muted. It's a toggle. You hit it to turn it on, hit it again to turn it off, and it's immediate. So if you need to sneeze or cough, you can hit the mute key really quick and press it again to get back into the conversation. The next little series of keys below that are going to be the fixed function keys. These are all the keys for transferring and holding and all that good stuff. So let's start up at the top of the blue key, which is the applications key. Now the applications key gives you a lot of the settings of the phone, which will be things like you know, language settings and contrast on the displays of these 20s, 30s, or 40 sets that are out there. But it's also going to give you things like language settings. It'll give you the ability to change the font sizes to large to small. But what it also houses is some features. One of the features is going to be the ability to look at your call history. It's the last 20 calls that you've either made, you received, or you missed. So it separates them out. It'll also give you the ability to forward your phone. Now, as an ACD user, you can't forward the phone because it won't forward an ACD call. But you could forward your phone if someone left the organization, you wanted to forward the phone to the receptionist. That way, if anyone dialed the extension internally, it would go there. But outside calls that go to the ACD agents can never be forwarded. The other thing you can do within that applications key, and we'll kind of come back to this in a little bit, is you have the ability to set up any blank keys. There's a lot of real estate on these phones. I've used up the front page on these 5330 phones, but there are 2 additional pages of 8 buttons each that you could program to be extension numbers that you dial a lot, or outside numbers, or a feature that you may want. So there's a lot of different ways to set up those buttons, and I'll kind of quickly go through that near the end of going through the phone. So that's your applications key, and we'll kind of come back to that. The next key is your cancel. It's also a release key. If you're wearing a headset, you can use that release. So there'll be a release also in the soft display of the phone when you're wearing a headset, so you'll have a couple different ways to hang up on people. So that's what that's for. If you're not wearing a headset, you can use the cancel key when you're doing transfers. And you can use it when you're doing conference calling. You'd be able to cancel and conference call, cancel conference calls and that sort of thing. So we'll kind of come back to that key in a little bit. The next key over is your redial key. It redials the last outside or internal phone number that you dialed. I'll show you when we go down the center of the display where the redial tells you the last call that you redialed. So you'll see that. Next key down, your hold key, the red key, will hold a call for you. It'll flicker the light next to the button of the holding key, and you'll be able to pick it up. I'll kind of show you that when we're going down the center of the phone, but it'll be your line key, your first line in, or the second if you have a call there holding. The next key over is your transfer and your conference. We have put a transfer key smack dab in the middle of your phone. I think you have that currently, so we mimic that. But this is the official transfer / conference key. To transfer a call, all you have to do is when you're on a call with somebody, you say hold on and you press the transfer key, you dial the extension. And if you stay on the line, you announce it to the person privately, or you can just hang it up right away to send it directly. To finish a transfer, it is just hang up. So I would hit transfer, dial your extension, say, hey, here's a call for you, and then I hang up the phone to complete it. So that's how a transfer works. So you can announce it or not announce it. It's up to you, depending on how quickly you hang up the phone. The other function of this button is to do a conference call. Now, a conference call, you can do up to 8 people and yourself. 8 people including yourself on a conference call. It can be a combination of internal or outside people. The only deal on this is you have to establish the first call. So I would say I call out to you and we're having a conversation. We need to add somebody into the call. I'll then press the transfer conference key. I'll hear dial tone. I can then dial an outside number, an internal extension. And then I can have a private conversation with that person when they connect. Hey, hold on, can you hop on the conference call? If you said yes, I hit the transfer conference key one more time. We're all connected together. Then I can just do that again and again up to 8 times. You'll notice directly above it is the cancel key. So say if I go ahead and I'm setting up a conference call and I want to add you in, but I call out to you and it goes to your voicemail. Well, I don't want to connect the voicemail, but I need to get back to the conference. So what I could do then is hit that cancel or release key above that. It will then bring me back to the callers. So it'll work for conference. If you're doing a transfer and you're wearing a headset, you can use that key to complete the transfer by hitting cancel or use the soft release key. I'll show you where that's going to be housed. So there's lots of different ways. It's going to work exactly like it does now for that function, but that's how that works. The messages key is your voicemail key that allows you access into your voicemail. When it's blinking, you have a brand new voicemail. I find the best practice is to achieve dial tone before pressing the button. So pick up the handset, turn on the headset, or turn on the speaker, and then press the messages key. It'll act the same each time. It does vary. If you don't pick up the handset, it depends on if you have a new message or not, how it acts. So I always just like to hit the speaker key first, then press that so I can achieve dial tone first. Then all you have to do is put in your passcode and you're in. Remember, your passcode is going to be 1111 until you set up your voicemail for the first time, and then it'll be whatever that is, and that will also mimic your hot desk login pin. So a couple things to remember there. So that's it on those keys. Also, this messages key, you can transfer calls straight to voicemail using it. So if I have a call, I won't hit transfer, but what I can do is hit the messages key, dial your extension, and hang up my phone. It'll send it straight to your voicemail box. So nice and clean and easy on that. Here's basically the layout of your phone. Even if you don't have the 53, 20, 30, or 40 phone, you'll see these same buttons up there. On the 30s and 20s and 40s, they'll look the same up top. You'll have a little smaller display on other phones that are out there from Mitel that you're repurposing. But this will give you the general feel for it. So on the 30s, 20s, 40s, you'll see that it's separated up by lines. So the first one is time and date. Then there's a hard line. And then you can see where the redial is in there and a dotted line below it. Well, that area is dynamic. While the phone is idle, it's showing redial, but when you're on a call, it's going to show you caller identification, or if a call rings in, it shows you caller ID. It also, when you're doing a conference call, this is where it's going to display how many people are on the conference call, say 3-person conference, 4-person conference. As an ACD agent, this will also be where it says locked So you'll see the locked indicator when you log in. We saw that a little earlier. And it'll also give you little things like, say, work timer, when the work timer's going. I'll show you that kind of stuff. So it's a dynamic display. You'll notice that there's no buttons associated to it. It's just to display information, but while the phone is idle, it's showing you what you can redial. Below the dotted line and before the hard line, just above the logout key, that's a dynamic area as well with buttons associated. So it changes depending on the conditions of the phone. And if you're wearing a headset, remember I told you there will be a release there. While the phone is idle, like it is here in this display, you have the ability to look in the phone book. You can look up people by their last name by entering a few letters of the last name and hitting lookup. So you can do that just like it worked before. Also, it'll give you, depending on the conditions of the phones, it'll give you other keys. Like I said, cancel the timer is in there. You saw that we had a hot desk when you initially log in to get in that you won't have once you're logged in. Below that hard line and before the bottom dotted line where you see these three little pages during the bottom before these silver keys, those are all buttons we designed for you. So starting at the top, you have your log out button. So to log out of the phone, you'll just press the log out and it'll take you off hook. Just hang up the phone and you're logged out. So it's really easy to log out on a daily basis. So just hit log out and you can follow the instructions or hang up the phone and you'll be logged out of the phone. It'll go back to saying locked up top. We left you a blank key there in case there's something you'd like on the front page. Just below that is your Make Busy. That's just like Do Not Disturb. Make Busy is the ability to take yourself out of the flow of the ACD call flow. So if you need to go on break, if you needed to go to lunch, you make yourself busy. It'll light the light next to Make Busy when you're in the Make Busy status. So you can go ahead and take your Make Busy break or whatever. And that way you don't have to log all the way back in. You just make yourself available. When you make yourself busy, it'll say Make Busy up top. I'll show you what that looks like. Direct page, you had that before, you'll have it again. Basically, you'll press the direct page and the extension number, and then you can page that person. They can, on the other side, they can pick up the handset or hit the speaker key and be able to respond back to you. Next one is your headset button. This is if you're wearing a wired headset or you have some variety of headset where you need a button. If you have a lifter kit, which I don't know if any of you do, where it actually lifts the handset off the cradle, then you don't need the headset button, and you can repurpose that button if you don't need it. Or if you're not wearing a headset and you're never going to wear a headset, you can use that, you clear that button off and put something else there if you'd like. I'll show you how to do that. We mimic the transfer key. Remember, it's that button in the center there, center bottom, the little girl pigtails looking button and the arrow. But you have a transfer key right smack dab in the middle too you can use. You press the transfer key and then dial the extension you want to transfer to, release it, and it goes. Then we put in a line 2. Actually, it won't say line 2. It's going to say outline because after I built this, I realized that it probably makes more sense to tell you that it's for outbound calls only. ACD phones can only have one inbound call at a time. But the problem is say you need to place that call on hold and make a call to a supervisor or make a call out or check with somebody. Well, you don't have a way to do that. So we put in this line 2, but it's really just for outbound calling only. And you'll use that key only to make a call when you're on a call. So if you, and what I mean by that is if you don't have a call and you want to make a call outbound, then you want to go ahead and hit your first key, which has your extension number on it, and dial out, because that way it blocks any inbound calls coming in. So if part of your job as an agent is to make calls to clients, and that counts towards your time, you're going to want to go ahead and hit your main key, which is the very bottom key, and make those calls out. The second key is only to make an outbound call when you're on a call. So if I have an agent or I have a client calling in and I need to make a call out to check with somebody or get a hold of a supervisor, I would place that first caller on hold by using the red hold key, and then I can press the second line key and dial out to get an outside line. Or it also helps for if you need to do a conference call with somebody or something like that. So just a heads up, I know it's a little confusing, but it'll say out dial or outline. So keep in mind that that's just for outbound. No inbounds will ever hit that key. Okay. So you'll notice down below it has 3 little pages. Using the silver arrow keys will allow you to have 8 more buttons. The buttons count from the hard line down to the dotted line, right where you see the log out. When you hit the next key, you'll see that the next pages are blank. And those are all available real estate for you to go ahead and fill in with extension numbers, outside numbers, a feature you like, whatever in there. If it's a feature that you don't have, then it just won't allow you to use it. It'll let you set it up, but it just won't work because you won't have the proper credentials to use it. So you can't really get into much trouble setting up buttons. Okay. So I wanted to quickly show you what it looks like when you're in Make Busy. So you'll see that the Make Busy light will be lit when you're in Make Busy. You press that button, and it'll also display up top. So the good news is when you log in initially for the first time, in the morning, it'll put you automatically in this Make Busy status. So that way you don't receive calls. So you could log in a little early and you'll be in Make Busy automatically. So all you have to do is hit the button again to make yourself available and you'll start receiving calls. So just to let you know that. Also, I honestly don't know what they decided as far as the work timers, but a lot of times when you're when you're receiving inbound calls, there'll be a work timer that kicks in that gives you a few seconds or maybe even a full minute, depending on what your job position is, to finish up work. So if you're filling in data and the customer has hung up or the client has hung up, this will give you the ability to kind of log into the day to finish up. It's called a work timer. Sometimes you don't need it. So what happens, it looks like this. When after a call is over, if you do have a work timer for your group, it'll say work timer up into the display, and that means you won't receive any new inbound calls, and there'll be a cancel timer that shows up. Well, if you press that, it puts you back on the flow. So say you're seeing in your display that there's 12 calls waiting or whatever, and you need to jump, you don't need that work time to finish up something, then you would want to cancel to jump right back in. Those timers generally vary. Sometimes there's no timers because maybe you finish up everything while you're on the call, but if there is one needed, you have the ability to cancel it. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the applications key. We touched on it when we were going through the keys earlier, but I want to show you what's behind those keys. This really has to do with the 20s, the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s, but it's just a brief. They vary depending on the model, but it gives you the general idea of what's under there. So here's kind of what they look like. It looks like you get your call history. We talked about that. That's the call history, the last 20 calls that you've received, dialed, or missed. So when you press that, it'll say missed is the first thing it shows you. You can hit the soft keys up here where it says close. It'll say, dialed, or you can select that and then it shows them below. So you'll get the hang of that. The next thing is a call forward. You won't be using that as an ACD. I don't believe you'll want that. But if for some reason you had to forward the phone for some reason, I can't think of a reason actually, because you would just log out. So you won't use that. The one you will use a lot is a settings key. That's where all the setups are of the phone. So let's take a look at that. So, there's the missed calls. That's for the caller ID. You can see it shows made, answered. If you press the button next to made, it'll show you the made. And they all line up after the line. I think the example I have here didn't have any caller ID yet. The phones weren't active, but I want to give a quick example. When you hit that, going back, let's go back for a second. When you're press the settings key, it's going to take you to this display, programmable keys. That's the one that you're going to use when you want to program any of the blank keys on the phone, or like you wear a headset, you want to get rid of that headset key, you can go in and repurpose that. Also on the same key, you have language settings. If you don't speak Mandarin, don't make it Mandarin, because it changes every font on the phone to Mandarin. So be very cautious messing with the languages. Text size, what you're seeing displayed here is large. You can go smaller. The only advantage to going smaller is on the key itself. When you get a call coming in, it'll show the caller ID, name, and number. Otherwise, it still shows name and number up on the display if that's offered to you. Call notification, you don't have to worry about that. That's not anything you will have. Contrast, that's how dark the display is, how bright the display is. Screensaver, stay away from that. It makes the phone look like it's broken. And the rest of these have to do with connectivities for teleworker type settings. You have it at home and say you got kind of weird feedback. You can adjust the audio feedback and that sort of thing. So the one we're going to concentrate on is programmable keys. So when you press programmable keys, it's going to ask you up top to select a key to program or edit. All you have to do is hit any blank key. This particular display isn't yours, but it gives you the illustration. So I could pick a blank key between these two keys, or I could go ahead and hit my arrow keys to go to the blank keys on the other pages. And just press the button next to the key you want to program. So that makes it nice and easy. Then it's going to ask you to label and number it. So the first thing you want to do is edit information. You'll notice also it says clear key. So if you're going to repurpose a key like the headset key, you could go to that same key, press that key when you're just going to set it up, and then clear the key and then make it something else. So after you do that, you'll hit edit information. When you hit edit information, it's going to ask you then to label it, and it gives you this cool little labeler down below. The way this kind of works, it's actually pretty simple. You can see it says next and previous page near the bottom. If you hit next page, it's going to give you capital letters. And then if you hit next again, it gives you like dashes, dots, commas, that kind of thing. So there's lots of different ways to label it. So you can really customize the label. All you have to do, it's a little easier than using the keypad to get the right letter, because all you have to do is press the corresponding button to the letter string until you hit the letter. You'll notice there's a little cursor that'll move across, and when it hits the letter you want, you just pause and it'll add the letter up. So if I wanted to spell mom, I would press down here on this line where it starts with the I. I'd just press that slowly and continuously until I see the little cursor go to the M. Then I pause, it'll add the M up top. I press the button again till I get to the O. Pause, it puts the O up top, and then again to the M again. And that way it works. You'll notice in front of the A, there's a space. So if I wanted to do first name and then space last name, I could just press the key next to the space and then the ABC one time, and it would land right there, and it'd add a space up there. So it's really easy to use. You just have to practice with it a little bit. Once you have the label in the way you want, you're going to hit edit number. When you press edit number, it's going to take your label and it's going to move the cursor down to the number, and you'll see your label up top. And then you just use the dial pad to go ahead and put in the either phone number or the extension. Now the phone number would be just like you would dial it from your desk, a 9 area code phone number. Or the extension number if it's someone internal, you can put that in there. So that's how you do it. And then once you're done, you'll say OK, and then save. You'll see come up on the display, and it'll save it. You'll notice down below it has pauses. So if you're calling into a bridge or something all the time, same bridge, you can put in the phone number and then pause, and then the bridge ID. So it makes it a little easier to call into bridges, that kind of thing. So that's how you do the labeling. On the sheets that are going to be available, you'll also have that information on how to set up the program, the keys. I'll make sure there's a page out there for everybody. So let's talk about the message key one quick time before we're done. When it's kind of here, there's kind of a little flow sheet that's going to be available to you. I just want to show you how this kind of works. So initial passcode is 1111, like I talked about. Everything in the box is ways to access your voicemail from your desk, from another person's phone, or from outside. So you can access your phone from your desk like we talked about. You press the key, speaker, and then the key, put in the 1111 initially. It asks for your, basically asks you if you want to listen to new messages, save messages, or go into personal options. So really easy. From another person's desk, it's just as easy as you press the key. It's going to try to, the same message key, you'll press that, but it's going to try to get you into the voicemail of theirs. So you'll have to hit star and then enter your mailbox or your extension number and then your passcode. So it's a little longer when you're using it from another person's phone. From outside, if you call the main number, anytime you hear anything automated, you hit star, and then it's going to allow you to access your voicemail, walk you through it. Or if you have a direct dial number, some of you do and some of you don't, that rings right to your phone, you can call yourself. As soon as you hear your own voice, you hit star, and it asks for your passcode and you're in. So pretty easy. The rest of this is your flow, okay? This is playing messages, making messages, and user options. So there's really only 3 things in the voicemail. And if you're familiar with it, you know kind of how it works. Once you go in, here's a couple little cheats on the sheet. If you ever are playing a message and you need to back up 5 seconds, you can hit the star key and it'll replay it. You know, people leave messages, call me back at 5444, and you're like, what? You can go ahead and hit star. It moves it back in 5-second increments. So that's kind of nice. It has the ability to fast forward, which I probably won't use. And you have the ability to pause for 30 seconds by pressing 1. So if someone walked into your office and you're trying to listen to your messages, you can press 1, it'll pause it, and you can do it. So all the other stuff still applies. You can play the message again. You can answer it, meaning it'll call back the person. You can give it to another user. So if it's a general mailbox, you can separate them out. You can keep it or you can discard it. So really easy to operate. You can make messages from here, or you can also just call the person's extension, go to their voicemail. But if you'd like to not ring their phone, when you're in here, you can press 6 and then put in their extension number, and then you can create a message and deliver it to them. You can review it. You can discard it afterwards. You can append it, which means to add to the end of it. All those things. And then you can also choose delivery options. So once you've created the message, it'll ask you, you know, do you want some special delivery options? You can mark things as confidential, which means that they can't be forwarded to anyone else in the organization. You can get a return receipt to let you know when the person has listened to it. You can mark things as urgent, which will make it so it puts it to the front of my list, and it will notify me when I go to my voicemail I have an urgent message. And I can mark things for future deliveries. So if I wanted to set up maybe a reminder message, hey, make sure you take your blood pressure medicine or something like that, it would go ahead and send me a message, let me know, light my light. And then below that, it has your user options, which is changing your name, changing your greeting, changing your passcode. Remember, changing the passcode changes the passcode for your login, so keep that in mind. And you can repeat the tutorial. Every time you go, the first time you go into your voicemail, it's going to take you through a tutorial to set up your voicemail, give you information, you know, put in your name, put in your greeting. So you can always repeat that if you ever want to. So that's a sheet we'll be providing you. So that's what I have. I thank you very much for your time. If you have additional questions, there will be people around when we're installing it. We can go through it, but please try to set up your voicemail the first day we cut over. We are repurposing a lot of the phones, so you won't have like a lot of time with the new setup right away, but you will lose all your voicemails, and you will have to set up a new voicemail messages and new keys on your phone and all that good stuff. So hopefully this gives you the tools, and I thank you very much for your time.